thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this launch event for our Independent Consultants Network in Scotland. My name is Susan Heyman, and I am the Members, Networks and Communities Manager across Scotland and Northern Ireland, so I'm based out in Belfast. I really do appreciate you all taking the time out of your day to join us. Especially if you're having to eat your lunch while screen sitting. I hope you get a lot out of today's session. So we will be recording today. I'll just run you through the structure. First bit, we'll be delivering some CIPD central information from Leanne Panglia, who is our head of CIPD in Scotland and Northern Ireland. And then we're going to hear from some of our CIPD steering group members on what they're seeing at the moment, how they sort of run their business and what successes they've had over the past year, and perhaps share some best practices or knowledge that they have. And then we'll open it up at the end for a discussion. We'd love to hear from some of you, any contributions that you have. If you do have any questions at any time during today's session or while Lee is speaking, just pop those questions in the chat panel and I'll make sure to answer them. So alternatively, you can use the icon to raise your hand or give me a little wave and I'll be happy to unmute your microphone. Everyone's microphone is currently on mute just to eliminate any background noise. So a bit about myself. I joined CIPD Scotland team back in June. And my focus is really around supporting our members and bringing members together and tapping into these great communities that exist. So why are we doing this? Why have an independent consultants network in Scotland? The CIPD want to ensure that we're keeping you up to date with all of the latest learning and research we have going on, but equally important is just being able to engage with you, our members, and understand what's happening in your community. So keeping our finger on the pulse, if you like. And we'll be hosting maybe 3 or 4 of these sessions over the year. The virtual ones are especially important. The scope is great because we can be really inclusive of a true Scotland-wide community. So it's really important for us to get your feedback and deliver valuable content to as wide of an audience as possible. And equally, it's important to mention that yes, we want to share what's going on centrally in CIPD with you as a group, but also ask for your guidance and contribution to sort of inform our position with research, help guide us in these stages as to what you want to hear more of. We'll be looking for feedback and case studies and resources that you provide is invaluable to us as an organization and to you as a community. So many of you may work with SMEs, and this is one of our only ways to really understand what's happening, struggles and successes of SMEs, because they're a huge part of the Scottish economy. So how can we support them more? What resources are needed? That sort of information is very valuable. So as I mentioned, please do get in touch, engage with us, email myself or anyone on my team. Let us know what you're seeing out there. I'm always open to feedback, and we will be hosting face-to-face events next year. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. We do have our monthly newsletter that comes out the first week of the month. So keep in touch that way as well. So I won't take up too much time. I'll hand over to Lee for some insight as to what's happening in Scotland and Central CIPD. Oh, are you on mute? No, you're all right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Susan. So I'm just going to spend, so first of all, welcome everybody. I'm really excited for this network to actually finally be coming off, because a few of you will know that we've been trying to set this up for some time now, and it kind of paused a wee bit at the beginning of the pandemic. So this is a big step to get all of you online for this event. So thanks for doing this. Thanks for our steering group, to our colleagues for helping us get this off the ground. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about some of our activity that may be of interest to this network, some things that we've done so far this year, but but also some of the things that we're planning for the future across both the UK, but also campaigns that are more focused on perhaps more devolved matters, more matters devolved to Scotland. Just building on what Susan said about the importance of the network, if we think about our purpose at CIPD of championing better work and working lives, then our economy is made up of organisations of all sizes, and at the CIPD we have great strength in relationships, usually with kind of middle-sized and larger organisations, and we're regularly asked to represent the views of the profession to Scottish Government, to Westminster, and it's often trickier to kind of confidently represent the views of smaller businesses. And while I know that many of our independent practitioners who are members of CIPD, many of you work for larger businesses, many of you also work for medium-sized and smaller organisations. So I think that there's a really great opportunity for us, as Susan said, to kind of engage with you as a group and hear the voice of smaller businesses in some of the campaigns that we're working on, as well as clearly you being a really important group of members for CIPD. So there's absolutely lots that I can talk through today, but I'm conscious I only have a few minutes. So what I've done is pick a few of the campaigns that we're working on or have been working on. And then perhaps I was saying to Susan earlier, we can maybe share some details with you or ask you what you might want to hear more about in future events. We take very much a campaigns approach in CIPD to, I guess, addressing and tackling some of the big workplace issues. And I guess our focus is on supporting our members through providing advice and guidance. So hopefully you'll all be aware, and those of you that are members, of the support and the guidance that's available via our website and via the events that we run. So that's about, I guess, building knowledge and capability. But there's also a focus around influencing and driving policy change, whether it's in Westminster or the devolved administration. So the kind of campaigns that we focus on and that I'll kind of draw attention to you right now usually have kind of two elements to it. There's that kind of influencing policy change and legislative change, but also influencing practice. So one of the kind of first things I wanted to highlight to you, if you're not aware of, is our campaign called Flex from First, which is very much focusing on flexible working and making flexible working a day one right, rather than an employee having to wait for 26 weeks. So we're calling on government to make that policy change, and we're asking employers to consider changing their own policies without perhaps waiting on legislative change. So there's a lot of organisations doing this already. There's a lot of good practice out there already. And we are really keen to continue to showcase that good practice and share that good practice, either with our members and organisations that we're working directly with, but also through partnerships. If we look at in Scotland with organisations who are doing some really great stuff like Flexibility Works, who are working with organisations of all sizes, including smaller businesses, and we have kind of growing and productive relationships with Scottish Government, particularly those teams focusing on fair work and inclusion, and working with Scottish Government on keeping their guidance up to date. Another area that we are particularly focused on in Scotland that may be of interest to the network is around skills. So skills is entirely devolved. And we could have a whole discussion, a whole session around what our focus is on the skills agenda in Scotland, but it's really, at the moment, the discussions around building the most inclusive organisations with a focus on, I guess, different generations and different demographics within a workplace. So we have a campaign called 1 Million Chances, which hopefully some of you will be aware of. And that's about encouraging employers to generate opportunities for young people, so to help young people enter and progress in the workplace. And most of you will be aware of the Young Persons Guarantee, Developing Young Workforce. Hopefully many of you will be working directly with them or working with organisations to make best use of the support through things like Young Persons Guarantee. So we work in partnership with those organisations and support them, but we have a specific focus on our own campaign called 1 Million Chances. And I think over time there's a great opportunity to work with some of you around how we can perhaps showcase and highlight different examples of best practice of perhaps smaller organisations or working in particular industry sectors. We're calling on policy change, currently around careers guidance. So there's a big review taking place in Scotland that's led by Graham Smith, the ex-head of the STUC, around careers guidance. And we're involved in that, and it aligns really nicely with some of our own members' guidance and support. The other, looking at the other area, the other end, I guess, of workforce demographics, is we are doing a piece of research around older workers and generally creating a truly age-inclusive workforce. And I'd be delighted to speak to any of you that are interested in that. We work with partners, business in the community. We work with the University of Edinburgh Business School and Age Scotland on developing our guidance and insight in this space. So that's skills. I did tell you that there's so much I can talk about. A campaign that's going to be launched in the new year is around financial well-being, and a term that we're using internally at the moment, in work poverty. So we have a new campaign launching in the first quarter of next year with very much a focus on how we make work a more reliable route out of poverty. So we're working very closely with the Joseph Rowntree Foundation to raise awareness of in-work poverty, if we can use that term right now. And also, so there's some policy change that we're looking at, but also it's about working with organisations of all sizes to encourage them to adopt a more proactive approach to financial well-being. There are some organisations that are doing some really great stuff in that space. I think there's a lot more that we could be doing as organisations, and we're also launching a hub in January with support and guidance for our members. Goodness, what else can I tell you? There's we have a campaign, a focus on, and we have some new guidance and insight coming out around corporate governance and culture in the Q1 of next year. We have a focus on, it would be very remiss of me not to talk about fair work. At CIPD generally we talk about good work, but in Scotland we have a strategic partnership with the Scotland's Fair Work Convention, where we work closely with them to amplify their work where it aligns with our views and thinking, and we are working on a programme of collaboration next year. And in terms of other campaigns, I think that's probably enough for now. Susan, I don't know, I'm very conscious of time, but I guess what I wanted to do was give you a little bit of a flavour of some of the areas of work that we're working on in Scotland, but also as part of how we work across the UK and beyond. We do have a policy forum that we set up earlier in the year in Scotland, which is designed to work with individuals, with our members and non-members and key stakeholders who are interested in influencing change. So if some of you aren't involved in that, I would like to know a little bit more, then we can pop in the chat how you can register to understand, I guess, a little bit more around how you can work with us to influence the priorities of the Scottish Government. We wrote our first election manifesto this year, which was quite exciting, based on connecting with many of our members. So I'd be delighted to share more on that at a later date, and probably that's enough, Susan, from me.
Right.
So, sorry, I've kind of bombarded you with lots of stuff that we're doing, and perhaps we can reach out to you after today or later today and find out maybe some things that you might be interested in as a group and finding out more about. Is that okay?
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much, Lee. Yes, as I mentioned in the beginning, like feedback and things that we want to hear from you as well. Like we are doing lots of campaigns and research, and thank you for that delivery, Lee. That was fantastic. But definitely, if you want to get involved in things like policy, like let us know. We want to hear from you. So, you know, moving right along, I will introduce Janie Smith. Let me get you on there, and Kathleen McAdams, who are our speakers for today. Let me just get Kathleen up there. There we go. Thank you, ladies. So I appreciate that you guys both have very different businesses that you run, and you know, we're hoping today that you can share some insights as to how you got started, what's going on, what you're hearing about right now, and share any best practices you have. So I will turn it over to you. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks very much, Susan. And Kathleen and I thought we would do it as a bit of a conversation between each other, but we'd love you to join in and ask us questions or stop us if you want us to elaborate on something. So I'll jump straight into it, Kathleen, if that's okay, and maybe tell everybody online today how you got started as an independent consultant.
Sure, thanks, Janie. So by chance, really, after considering it for some years, a role I'd taken in a small business and that I was really excited about didn't work out for financial reasons that the company had, and so I ended up out of work unexpectedly, sort of towards the end of 2016. While I was looking for a new role, I was offered some part-time temporary work doing some OD things for for Heriot Watt Students' Union. And while I was doing that, a past employer who had worked for in London, they came and asked me if I would do some European talent acquisition for them, which was a bit different from the OD stuff from the university. And what I realised was that I actually quite liked both the variety and the idea of being my own boss, essentially. So I decided that I would actually have a look at whether or not that was something I could do on an ongoing basis. And after a bit of time investigating, looking at Business Gateway and chatting to some other HR consultants, I set up as a limited company in March 2017, and Albany HR was born. So what about you? What was your experience of getting started? Was it similar?
Some differences. When I left my last employer, who was NatWest, in October of, lose track now, 2020, I wasn't even 100% sure if I wanted to work again, work for myself, go and take up employment. So the first thing I did was take some advice that I'd had, Kathleen, from everybody that had kind of gone down a similar path, was just take a complete break. Obviously, COVID kind of forced that break on me because we weren't allowed to go anywhere or do anything. But it actually was really great to recharge the batteries. And then in about spring of this year, I started, a bit like you, to work with my network and talk to people that had gone down different paths. Some people had gone back to employment, some people had set up on their own, others were doing charitable work, and actually talked to lots of people and kind of weighed up pros and cons. And the thing that I decided was right for me was a bit of a portfolio where I could blend doing a bit of a part-time consulting, but I was really keen to contribute something by getting involved with a charity. So I've become a trustee of a fantastic charity, so I enjoy working with them, and I've been doing a little bit of exec coaching as well. And so I'm newer to independent consultancy than you, and still sort of growing my business, but really enjoying the flexibility that it gives me.
Brilliant.
Well, I mean, I think we do things a bit differently, Kathleen, so it'd be really good to hear about what your business model and the services you offer clients.
Yeah, sure. So, so Albany provides outsourced HR support to organisations who have little or no HR capability, but also where, and we've got some quite large clients, where a business needs additional support or they need subject matter expertise. And that can be for short-term projects or long-term projects. We offer support in all aspects of HR strategy and operational management. And as I say, we've now got a mix of clients, I think, some of whom we support on an ongoing basis, and we're maybe just at the end of the telephone when they've got a situation that they need to resolve. But then also clients who we work on an ongoing basis, and it's more of a longer term relationship, and we are doing some of the strategic as well as some of the operational. And we've found that actually the retained clients, they have got a lot going on, so they start off thinking that they maybe just need a wee bit of support and want that peace of mind that there's an HR expert on the end of the telephone. But when you help them actually talk about their business, then they find that there's more they could and should be doing, and I think that's been particularly true through coronavirus. So yes, we're finding that one project can lead to many. And in terms of a team, it was originally myself, but now we're a team of 4, including some admin support. And Wendy and Jen should be on the call today. And then I've also got a number of associates that I've worked with. So that was people in my network or people that actually I met during this year. So trying to expand my network a bit. Who've worked on projects with me for clients, and either that's been because of I just didn't have enough time, or that's been because they've had a set of skills that we didn't have within the business, and so we've been able to bring in associates to partner with us, which has worked really well. And I think, yes, so in terms of what we actually do, we offer support in all aspects of the employee life cycle. So that's everything from recruitment through all the disciplinaries and grievances that come in the middle, through to restructurings and potential exits, but nice stuff too, around well-being and making sure people have got good jobs. So yeah, so I guess I know that is a bit different to you. Your model is different, and you told me that you'd made a decision to be a one-man band.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that decision.
Yeah, well, after I did that period of research that I was referring to, I was really clear what I did and didn't want to do. So I did want to do interesting pieces of work. I wasn't quite ready to resign myself to daytime television forevermore. So, but what I also really have an ambition to do when COVID permits is to do a bit more travelling and have more time for myself and other interests that I've got. So I decided that keeping quite a tight grip on just working myself. I don't mind collaborating with people as an associate. I've done a couple of pieces of work like that this year, but I've got no plans to recruit anybody and grow my team. And I definitely don't want to offer the type of service that you offer where you've got a recurring and regular demand from clients. So I'm tending to look for small assignments that are quite tightly bound. They might last for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, where there's a clear start and end point. And that's really more about a personal sort of life choice, but hopefully for all the independent consultants listening, they can get the feel from us both that there's lots of variety and lots of opportunity out there for whatever your areas of interest are. And like, or differently, I guess, to yourself, Kathleen, rather than offering a full service, I'm really targeting a couple of areas that are of particular interest. One's business transformation, where I've done a lot of work at various companies that I've worked with, but also people development, which is an area that I've both worked and studied in. So those are my two areas of interest that I like to bring to clients. But obviously you've been in business a bit longer than me, Kathleen, so I guess along the way you've now got more experience. Do you want to tell us what some of the biggest challenges have been as you've grown the business to what it is today?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about this yesterday and actually went to an event which was about aligning your personal goals with your business goals, and so I had a bit of time to think about what I set out to do and what's important, and also what I've ended up doing. So it reminded me that there's a really, I think for anybody who's either set up on their own or thinking about it, a fabulous book called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I think the most recent version is actually called E-Myth Revisited, and the main premise of the book is that as well as being an entrepreneur, because you are when you set up on your own, you also have to be the technician, as in the person that does the work, and then you also have to be the manager, so the person that manages the work, and I think that's really, you don't necessarily think about that when you're thinking about setting up on your own, because you're thinking about working on your own and working for yourself and all the great things that will be. You're not accountable to anybody else. You get to pick and choose. You manage your own time, etc. But I found very quickly it doesn't actually work like that. Particularly when you're busy. So. And I would say, sorry, at least maybe until you take on support. So I think if you are setting up, that's a challenge to think about. Another thing is about creating a pipeline of work. So it's really fabulous, and I haven't quite managed it myself yet, if you can create a pipeline of work that comes in as you've got the time to do it. Yeah. I think. So I think having the time to do it yourself, or having people lined up to work with you on the things that people are going to ask you to do, I think that's a fair challenge, and we can talk later on about how you kind of manage that. But I think that pipeline of work, and then another thing I think is a challenge, which again I wasn't necessarily thinking about when I started out, was about all the administration and management that goes with actually having your own business. There's really a lot of juggling, and you really have to be super organised. I think you really have to be super organised. Great question around what's billable time. Well, I guess I'm quite strict about what's billable time, and it's what I've agreed with the client is billable time. I would put that into the scope of work, so it was quite clear up front. And I guess some of the things that I maybe don't consider to be billable work, depending on the length of the project, would be some research. So I think if we've agreed that research is part of the project, maybe doing benchmarking or looking at other organisations, then that's perhaps something that I would say is billable. But if somebody asks me a question that I think I should know the answer to, or that they should reasonably expect me to know the answer to, then I wouldn't say that was billable time. I would say that's about me developing my understanding and my knowledge in order that I'm able to provide a great service to the client. And then I think the other thing that's loomed large over the last 2 years is coronavirus. And I think that's actually, again, an event I was at earlier in the week. We were talking about the fact that coronavirus has meant that a lot of HR professionals think that they have had to upskill. And I think we have had to upskill, but a bit of me thinks, but lots of it's things that I'm not going to use anymore once we're out of coronavirus, because hopefully we'll not know about furlough anymore. I don't want there to be lots of global pandemics. But I think that it's forced us to learn more about lots of things that we needed to know to immediately, well, certainly I did, to immediately help clients. So we didn't know about new legislation, and clients didn't know about new legislation, and lawyers didn't know about new legislation until it was here. There wasn't the opportunity to sort of lead in nicely to it through policy, being able to contribute to consultations or see draft policies in advance. So I think that's been a challenge really, is that upskilling, whether I think I want to know about furlough in the future or not. I think that's been a really big challenge, that whole learning and really delivering almost simultaneously. Because when you're on your own, you haven't got the infrastructure around you to actually help you the way you would probably get assistance. Well, I would hope you would get assistance, depending on the size and scope of the organisation that you're in or the sector that you're in. When you're independent, it's all on you.
Definitely.
So yeah, but that's exciting.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess actually I would say to you then, in terms of your career path, that's had you working in quite a lot of large organisations, and I wondered, just thinking about some of the challenges maybe that I talked about there, but how do you think your membership of the CIPD has benefited you when you've had this switch to working as an independent consultant?
Yeah, I think it's been a huge benefit, because I think there is that sense that you're on your own. So it's nice to feel that you belong to something when you're no longer part of a big organisation. So even just that sense of belonging to some community is quite reassuring. But I think there's 3 really particular advantages that my membership's given me. So I'm a chartered fellow, and I think that has both given clients who are selecting me, I always make sure that's on my profile. And I think that gives clients a little bit of confidence that you've achieved a sort of kite mark that gives them confidence to select you. But I think it also gives me confidence to offer myself to clients, because we're all quite self-critical about, oh, do I know enough and will I be able to add value to the client? Well, I've been exposed to the scrutiny of my professional body, and they were prepared to give me that kite mark. So it gives me the confidence as well. So that's one definite benefit. Secondly, I do use the resources on the Knowledge Hub or get along to events. I've attended events in regions all around the UK, because people are usually very welcoming and allow you to join even if you're not a member of their local team. So I've made some great contacts, and I've learned about reports, best practice, trends, which I can then take to my clients. And the third way that I've benefited is just that access to the network. So although I've made a very conscious decision to not employ anybody, I want to work for myself and do solo gigs, we all need to collaborate at times. So it's great to have almost like an in to a network of fellow professionals that I can use. And so, perhaps in the future I'll collaborate with some of those colleagues in work, but actually just being able to bounce ideas off them. I've found people to be really generous with their time, and in terms of being prepared to meet with you and be a sounding board. So those are probably the 3 main benefits that I've experienced of CIPD. I mean, it was great hearing you talking about some of the challenges that you've experienced this year, Kathleen, but now you've been in business for a few years. If there are people today who are like me, newbies to being independent consultants or thinking about branching out as an independent consultant, are there any top tips that you wish somebody had given you when you were starting out that you can share with the group?
Yeah, I guess one thing again I was thinking about yesterday was, and this is because I've been very fortunate and I've been very busy since January. I guess a lot of people said to me when I was starting out, don't expect to make any money in the first 6 months. And you have to get your name out there before anybody will give you any work. And I think actually it's not worked out that way for me. So I don't think I'm different from everybody else. I think actually we're in a bit of a different time. And I think probably particularly in work and the stuff that we're doing with SMEs, I think HR has really raised its profile, or the profile of HR has really been raised over the last couple of years. And businesses, perhaps more than they did previously, have seen the value of having an HR expert, because at the end of the day, it's not all common sense, and so I think that's probably contributed to me being busy. So I would say it's really useful to hear about other people's experiences, but don't necessarily expect that to be the way it works, because I think we're we're in very changeable times, and so yeah, so that would be one thing. So what I'd say then is my advice would be don't spread yourself too thin. Really in terms of what you can achieve personally. So I joined far too many networking groups initially, thinking I have to put myself lots of places to give myself lots of opportunities to find work. And actually the majority of the work has come in through people that I know, whether it's people that I know personally or people that I know that have referred someone else to me. And I think that's actually quite common for a lot of people who are starting out. So I guess I was a bit concerned, particularly where I've set up with a model of supporting small businesses in the first instance, although I've ended up with some larger clients. I kind of thought, I know lots of HR people, but that's not going to help me with small businesses because I need to know small business owners. But actually, a lot of that has still come through HR people. I've found that a lot of HR people are on boards. Or they still have friends who are in small businesses. So don't. I suppose I kind of slightly discounted a part of my network and thought I had to do this completely other thing, and that's not the way it's worked out. So I guess I would think be a bit strategic about your networking. I think the amount of capacity that you think you have, you need to think about that. And pricing comes into this, but if whether you're working on your own or whether you're trying to actually build a business, you cannot do 5 days delivery to a client or a set of clients and expect that you're not going to be really tired or overwrought, because there's all the other bits that you need to do. There's the business development, there's the finance, there's the administration. So yeah, there's a lot to do. I think it's really important to look after yourself. And again, we've probably seen that over coronavirus, and you have to think about your own health and well-being because you need to be role modelling, I think, for your clients. And I think particularly where what I've found is that with a lot of small businesses, you're talking to business owners and business managers who have to themselves be a bit jack of all trades. So again, you have to be able to sensibly talk to them about what isn't achievable. So again, and what isn't good for your health, and what isn't a good way to self-manage. So because I guess we end up doing a lot of coaching, or taking a very coaching approach, I think, with the businesses we work with, particularly small businesses, and being a sounding board. So I think you really have to model that. And not get caught up in sort of so much that you want to deliver a high quality of service to clients that you're actually doing that to the detriment of yourself. This is a quick one. Writing a proposal always takes far longer than you think it's going to. So I think there's a bit about not going for every piece of work, but thinking about pieces of work that you want to do, whether it's because they're interesting, or you think you've got a really good skill set for them, or you think they're going to give you, they're going to help you build up your business in a particular area. And I think also then, just as I'm repeating you a wee bit in terms of CIPD membership, but I think I looked at this in a couple of aspects. One is CIPD membership allows you to develop a network of people who can help you, whether that's having bouncing ideas off, whether it's being a bit stuck on, whether an approach is a good one, and so yeah, having a sounding board. But actually, it could also be for people to work with you and work with you on projects. So I think that's good. I think what I found absolutely invaluable for research purposes is the CIPD resources. So I think whether I'm looking for alternative ways to do things, whether I'm looking for best practice, although not everybody wants best practice, sometimes it's good practice, whether it's just an alternative way of doing that, I think that's very good. I've also found the CIPD resources fabulous for benchmarking, and I've used the Kroner benchmarking and the job evaluation tool as part of HR Inform, which I have. But I think also the guides and the fact sheets. I was even looking for my sister was looking for some information on the true cost of attrition yesterday, and I was able to find a couple of resources there with facts and figures to help her build a business case. So I think there's a lot there, and there's always more than you expect there to be. And I guess the last thing would be the helpline, which I use quite a lot and find is a great benefit. So yeah, does that answer?
Yes, you're definitely getting your money's worth for your membership, aren't you?
Kathleen, I just someone had a quick question about law. So do you partner with a law firm to provide advice on more complex employment law issues, or do you just use the employment law accessibility from CIPD?
I'd say it's mostly, I don't partner with a law firm currently, and I do use the CIPD resources, although I'm actually a member of the Chamber of Commerce, so I've got the benefit of helpline there as well. And to be honest, I sometimes phone both to see if I get a different answer, or just to be doubly sure. You know, a lot of the membership organisations that you can join for networking have an employment law helpline as part of the package. But I have, sorry, having said that, I have had a couple of instances where I was doing something for a client that was a bit more complex from a contractual perspective, and there I have referred the client to an employment lawyer that I know. So it's I don't have a partnership, but I have done it that way, where I suppose the law firm's been an associate on that basis.
Well, I'm conscious of time. Maybe just I've got just 3 tips to add to yours, Kathleen, and then we could open for questions, Susan. And they're probably some similar, but maybe come at it from a slightly different angle. So one of my tips would be definitely have some money set aside, not because I don't think you're all going to get business, but I think it's great to give you the freedom to feel comfortable about choosing what business you accept. So Kathleen said, don't spread yourself too thin. I remember a long time ago, my husband, when he set up on his own, it was almost like you were frightened to refuse a piece of work because you just didn't know when the work would dry up, and it just never did. So we just had a really busy first few years in business. So I've tried to learn from that and not panic into saying yes to everything. Second one was about, I think Kathleen makes a really good point about not spreading yourself too thin. The thing I found is, in terms of networking, is be really explicit that you're open for business, what type of business you're interested in, and equally what type of business you're not interested in. So that lets you target, and people then come to you for relevant referrals. And the other last piece of advice would be don't undersell yourself. I think we probably all tend to go, oh, that's a bit pricey, I better, you know, go a bit lower. Whereas I would say maybe go the opposite way. And I don't want, if any of my clients are on today, I don't want them thinking of overcharging them. But, you know, I try and think about what's the value of the outcome that I'll be helping the client achieve, and think about how you would attach a value to that outcome rather than having a day rate or an hourly rate. Just that's the way my model works. But I think you never want to accept a piece of work that you end up resenting either the work or the client because you feel you've given yourself a raw deal. So I would say, you know, err on this, you know, look, if you look, there is some evidence online that you can look and test. I remember the first coaching gig I got, I was thinking, what will I charge? I don't want to be too expensive, don't want to be too cheap. And I actually went online, and you can actually test and see what the market is and decide where you think your experience and what you've got to offer helps you to pitch. So be confident in yourself and your value. I think probably we're going to run out of time if we don't open up for questions, aren't we, Susan? So
no, it's fine. It's great. Just a couple things that someone had to leave a bit earlier, but they emailed and asked what's important to include in service agreements. I don't know if service agreements are, I know you could get like a box standard one online, but is there anything that you in your past have said, oh, why didn't I think of that? Or I should have included that?
I think a scope of services or a schedule of services, I think is really important, so that there's clarity over what is and isn't included, because scope creep is really easy, I think, and I guess why you would always try and avoid that, you know, even if you're within an organisation, because it can make you ineffective. When you're working on your own, you're measured on what you deliver. And so I think making sure that you're very clear about what it is you're going to deliver and the price you're going to deliver it for, and having the option perhaps that, you know, this is what we're going to do and this is the price. But actually, if we go over that, here's another cost. So there could be a bigger option that you move to if necessary, or there could be a rate for time that goes, or things that need to be done outside of the initial scope. So you're not saying no to anything up front, but you're building in to your pricing structure some clarity around what happens if we move a bit.
Yeah, and I think there's some good templates that you can get online, you know, Business Gateway and things have some outline templates that you can use to make sure you've covered anything like GDPR, confidentiality agreements. I usually try and explicitly say what's out of scope, especially sometimes terms in our industry can be open to interpretation. You know, if you're doing a piece of performance management, does that mean you're doing the skills? Does it mean you're doing the process? Does it mean you're doing all of the above? You're doing policy? So if I've had usually a couple of conversations with a client and I've understood what I think the scope is, so I usually try and spell that out clearly. And the other one I would just add to what Kathleen said is think about a payment schedule as part of your setting out the work, because you're a small business probably. So actually you could commit to doing a piece of work, and if you just assume you get paid it all at the end, that could mean you've done quite a lot of effort before you're seeing anything back. So depending on the nature of a job, I try and work out sort of staged payments, so you can still charge for an element of what you've delivered each month, or as there's a particular deliverable due, and that gets a nice balance between keeping some cash coming in at the same time as the client having the confidence to know that they've got something tangible that they feel confident to pay up for.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And somebody just put up a comment about having sort of early payment terms, as in I think the figure that went up was 15, and I actually normally do 14 and then only extend it if the client, you know, because some clients that you're going to work in for, they'll say, well, no, our standard is 30. That's fine then. But I do find with smaller clients, they actually do tend to pay quite quickly, which is good. So 14 or 15, I think, is quite reasonable.
Yeah, I'm the same. I do my standard if I'm determining would be 14 days from the time I raise an invoice. But like Kathleen says, sometimes if I'm working as an associate, then you kind of inherit a standard set of terms that they've agreed with their clients. So it mixes it up a bit.
Brilliant. Great. Well, everybody has the ability to unmute their mics if you do have any questions, or you can pop them in the chat panel. I know you guys mentioned your talk about well-being. So, you know, what are you doing to care for yourselves at this time? Because you're both very busy. So, you know, we need to take some time and think about that. I mean, is there anything that you're implementing or anything that you're, you know, I don't know. I, for one, use the Calm app every day, but I don't know what you guys use or suggest. Well-being is quite important at the moment.
Yeah, I don't use any apps. I find though the luxury of getting to choose the work I do and who I work with and what, you know, who I work for is actually gives you a lot more enjoyment, and you know, so you manage to avoid some of the stresses and strains that you had no choice about when you're employed. So I find that's boosted my happiness quotient immensely. So.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, after being dreadful at looking after myself for quite a number of months, I have actually stopped working so much. So I'm actually put some limits on how much I work, and that includes not working every weekend, which I was doing for quite a while. But that was starting to impact on my health. So yeah, I've put myself on a diet which includes juicing. The drinking the juice is good, but it's got the added benefit that it takes flipping ages to actually make the juice on a daily basis. So so that's a bit of time actually where I watch things on Prime with my earphones in. So it's enforced downtime while doing something to my benefit.
Sounds good. Somebody's asked a question about how we gauge our rates. I can maybe start answering that one. So it depends on what type of work I'm doing. I think when you've worked in industry, you get a sense of what you've paid in the past. So you get a wee bit of a sense of market rate. but I have also looked at pieces of research. So, for example, when I was doing some coaching work, I actually looked at some research that was all available online. That was somebody had done a piece of research into what should you pay for a coach, and it was quite interesting. They gave tips like, don't underprice, or people will think you must be pretty rubbish at it. But equally, the people that are charging, £1,500 an hour are probably ripping their clients off. And so I tried to gauge. But the other thing I found really great about being part of the professional network is, I talk to other people, and people are very prepared to share, because we're not in direct competition with one another. There is more than enough work to go round. So actually talking to people and understanding what rate for what type of work, and perhaps the profile of the organisation, is a wee bit of a determinant for me. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Kathleen.
So I think sometimes it's a bit of a guessing game, but I think you do need to decide yourself what the minimum rate is that you want to work for, and I guess that's it, particularly when you're starting out, and that'll be a mixture of what you need to earn, plus what you think is reasonable, and what other people are charging, and the sectors that you want to work in. I think there's a lot of things that can kind of, and as Jenny says, it's not that easy to find. Sorry, in terms of the coaching piece, yes, but in terms of, I think when I was looking at it, even last year, there's a lot of consultants don't advertise online what they're charging. So I suppose there is a bit about using your network and using your knowledge of perhaps what consultants have cost when you've used them in the past. And the bit also Jenny said about, don't necessarily think that you have to price things on a daily rate or an hourly rate. Think about it as a piece of work. And it may mean that sometimes you win a bit and sometimes you lose a bit. Yeah, I think have confidence in yourself and your own ability, because the worst thing you want to do, as Jenny says, is end up resenting a piece of work because it's made you feel bad because it's not earned you what you thought it should have done. But think it out, plan it, and I guess the bigger the piece of work, the more effort you need to put in up front to decide what a piece of work should cost.
Yes. Great. So we're in December, ladies. We've only got a few minutes left, and we all would like to know, so reflecting over the last year, what is one of your biggest challenges, and then looking forward to next year, what are you most excited about? Janie, do you want to start?
Ooh, biggest challenge. Well, biggest challenge. I suppose my biggest challenge wasn't necessarily a work one, because obviously COVID impacted all of us, friends, family. So the challenges have more been how to juggle and support people in your wider circle. My daughter's in second year now at uni, so last year she was having a very miserable experience confined to a small pokey student room, whereas this year we're dealing with the joys of student accommodation and dodgy landlords in London. So trying to wrestle with those have probably been my biggest challenges, but I've actually loved the fact that I'm now independent. Has given me much more flexibility to be able to make time for some of those things that I wouldn't have been able, or I would have done, but I would have been probably frazzled doing them evenings and weekends. So that's why it kind of reconfirmed to me that the flexible working model that I have now as an independent is really the right fit for me at this stage in my life. And the thing I'm most looking forward to next year is doing some exciting pieces of work with clients, and really excited to obviously see how that work lands and the outcomes it helps those clients. Because the other thing I love about working independently is you can really see clear line of sight between what you did and the difference you made. So I'm excited to see how those things pan out next year.
Great, thanks, Jeannie.
So I think that I feel as if I've had a year of challenges, but I think one of the biggest ones was deciding when was the right time to take on people to work with me on an employed basis. I thought about that and thought about that and thought about it before taking the plunge, and then I wished I'd done it sooner. So I've got two lovely team members now, and I thought it was going to be an extra pressure, and it's not. It's been a massive relief, actually. And I think in terms of next year, I'm really looking forward to having people that work with me to actually help me plan organise the business, and think about where we want to be as a business, and bring and what we can do as a business. So I think it can be a bit of a lonely life at times as a consultant, I kind of like that I've got people to work with, but I love the bit that I'm still master of my own destiny. So yeah, it feels like best of both worlds now. Good,
great. Well, that's why we're here, is because we don't want people to feel like they're working independently, even though they are. This, freelance community is here for discussion and feedback, and yeah, we want to make sure all of you are aware you do have an outlet, somewhere to come and share and discuss. So if there are no other questions, I think we can wrap it up a few minutes early. As I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we are going to be doing some more of these sessions in 2022. A face-to-face networking event will definitely happen. So please read the newsletter that comes out specifically for Scotland, and keep in touch. And I appreciate everyone giving up their lunch hour today to be with us. So we've got some lovely comments in the chat panel, so that's great. Thank you, ladies, for delivering today, and I will speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Have a nice
festive
season, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.